Hi, everybody. Hope you're well. Welcome to the African Queen Mo Show. Today is Wednesday. Yep, the 19th. Oh my goodness, how the days are flying, of February. And today we are coming to you live from the beautiful city of Nairobi. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for supporting our channel. Thank you for watching. For those of you who watch our videos, thank you very much. Apologies, the lighting is a little bit too much today. Um, yeah, thank you so much for supporting our show and for watching it and giving our likes. Thank you very much. You know, those likes are very, very, very important because they help us, to work the algorithm. The algorithm knows that we're here and that we are a serious channel and that we're here and we're, presenting to you. Today, we're talking about the new era. Okay. We're talking about dismantling deconstruction. There's been a shift. Have you guys noticed that there's been a seismic shift in the world? Since Donald Trump took office this year, it's been busy, busy, busy. It's been change after change, announcement after announcement every day, order after order after order, you know? And I'm wondering to myself, every time I wake up, I wonder what's going to happen now today? What's going to happen? So many new changes, so many new changes. So we're talking about that today. And I'm also going to invite early on in the show, I'm going to invite my colleague, Susan, because we're running a little bit late. I'm going to invite her on. She's been waiting. Susan Karibu, Sana, to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Welcome, Susan. By the way, guys, the last show that we did where we were discussing what was going on with Ivory Coast and with Raila, the one that we recorded with Zapayoro, we really thank you for watching that. It was very enlightening for us. I hope you found it enlightening. He was supposed to join us today, but unfortunately, he found himself with a last minute activity and wasn't able to make it with us. But that's okay, no problem. I'm sure he'll join us in the next show, and I'm sure that you'll be looking forward to hearing from him. We'll probably be doing a few more recorded shows with him because he's quite a very, very busy person. So it can be a bit difficult. So today we're talking about, all these world leaders, including Donald Trump, Elon Musk. Although people don't want to see Elon Musk as a leader, but he is a leader, by the way. We have Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. All of them are deconstructing the dominant indoctrination. Okay, that has come from the US through Europe and the world. Basically, we know very well that in traditional societies, they were not very open, and we believe that they should be open. We believe in individualism now, and unfortunate, and where the individual matters. And you see, when I went to school in the US, that is exactly what I was taught. I was taught that I was an individual and that my individual needs and wants and identity were very important, and I needed to know who I was and to identify my likes, my dislikes, and that people should respect my likes and dislikes. And I was like, what are you people talking about? I was part of a community. I was part of a family back in Kenya. And now the US is trying to tell me that I, as the individual, are queen. And that's the reason I'm African Queen Mo, because I'm trying to figure out who I am still. Okay. My identity is kind of like gray because in Africa, I'm just one of many. But in America, they teach me that I am an individual. But you see, I think it's time for us to look at these issues, because it's not just the identity issues. There's also things to do with policies that are around things like aid and trade, and the fact that the dismantling now of looking into other countries, and how their policies are. So we look at people like Donald Trump, who is focusing on America. He's looking at America first and its immediate neighbors. And he's not really interested in the idea of colonizing another country per se, although let me not say that really, because he talked about Greenland and he's taking over the Panama. Is it the Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico, calling it the Gulf of America? Yeah. But anyway, he's only interested in the area within his direct environment. you know. And then we're also looking at things to do with climate and climate change. We have people who are environmental skeptics and others who are climate change deniers. And we know that one of the climate change deniers, one of the big ones, and skeptics, is actually Donald Trump himself, because he actually is talking about drill, baby, drill, you know? And people like Ibrahim Traore, I don't even think he's even paying attention. He just wants agriculture. He wants to actually um, enhance his country's independence and stop dependence on foreign aid for food, especially. And so, what he has done, he's even taken the prison inmates, from what I listened to today in the news. The prison inmates are now becoming agriculturalists. They're being trained to do agriculture, to go and work and make the country self sufficient in agriculture. And so far, they've achieved quite a bit, you know. And then, of course, there's the issue, other issues such as disinformation and in the media campaigns. We'll talk about that later. You know, information and disinformation campaigns. We know that Donald Trump was a victim of, or he considered himself a victim of media disinformation and misinformation. And we know that uh, media is one of the most powerful tools, okay, for influencing the social views, you know, for influencing people's views. So the media is so important. And we know that even in our elections in our countries, yeah, like for example, in Nigeria, we know that influencers, according to the BBC, influencers were secretly paid by political parties. This is not new, because even in Kenya, although they'll deny it, the fact is that we know that even in Kenya, it's the same thing. Yeah. So Kenya's hidden political influences, they also use images that may not even be relevant to a story that they're trying to tell. Yeah. Post truth era, guys. They take pictures of East Africa back in the 1990s in war zones, and they assume, you know, they attach them to a tweet about, you know, some ethnic group being annihilated or people being moved and things like that, and they retweet them. So the problem is that we have to, they're looking actually to deconstruct what is considered okay. Okay. And of course, there's also the equality, you know, the issue to do with the transgender issues and things like that, that are they cut close home to Elon Musk, and they want to deconstruct. That already was a deconstruction of our societal norms, and uh, that's also being challenged. And as we can see, Elon Musk has come out very heavily on the gender issues. And I'll allow Susan to actually talk about that one more. But basically, when it comes to the deconstruction, we know that there are basically approximately 5 areas. And these are not, you know, written in stone. These are just like examples. Okay. So there's a political angle. Okay. For example, where there are some political norms like the social media, such as Twitter, communication directly to the public, you know, confrontational styles. And so we're looking at ways to challenge those kind of confrontational styles. As we've seen, uh, things like Facebook, social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter actually removed some of their fact checkers. They actually stopped fact checking because they saw that as a way to try to interfere with the conveyance of accurate information, basically, you know. And then there's also issues to do with foreign policy and immigration, and you know, things to do with judicial appointments and things like that. So we've been seeing a lot of things happening in that direction. They're deconstructing things to do with systematic racism and things like that, and patriarchy and gender norms and things like that. So right now we are in a change. We have a lot that we're dealing with, and a lot of people are not reacting very positively to this, guys. They're not. A lot of people are actually impacted in their pockets because, unfortunately, they feel targeted. And we'll get into that point, but let me allow Susan to also just say hello, and to also contribute. Hi, Susan, welcome. And everybody else who's watching, welcome and thank you very much.
Hi,
Karibuni.
Maureen. Yeah.
Hi.
Uh, hi, Queen Mo. How are you? How is everybody? I'm seeing a delay in the Is it my internet or yours where the video is hanging a bit? Have you noticed anything on your side, or it's my side? Can you hear me well? Okay, lovely. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, there's so much going on with the deconst post pre-Trump and how it is post-Trump, and many
Susan, I
DEI.
think we have a delay. Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. There's a delay on your side, Susan.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, especially on the issue of DEI
Yeah.
and the sexuality issue. I mean, the world has not agreed with some of the policies that the Democrats have been trying to tie to their aid. For instance, many countries have complained about the one of the things was in the PEPFAR program. They felt like said, and they actually made formal complaints to Congress. They wrote letters. Yeah, and the current political regime in the U.S. has said that they received complaints, the letters. When China gives us money, they never force us to adhere to their beliefs. That with the with the U.S., when you are giving money, when you're advancing foreign aid, you tie it up with things that we do not agree with, and so there was that issue. And you'll see that even in Trump even removed from the PEPFAR program are some of the things that the countries found offensive, in particular anything to do with abortion. Some countries have a lot of reservations on that. In fact, which comes from the African Charter of Human and People's Rights, there's a reservation. The women's rights document that comes from that is called the Maputo Protocol, and in the Maputo Protocol, they've included a provision or clause on abortion. A lot of the African countries have reservations on it. So that's the particular clause many African countries have issues with. So for the Democrats to finance that, the yeah, as my internet seems to be unstable. Can you see me? It seems to be going on and off. Can you see that? Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, your
Yeah.
actually your internet is not just going. It's not really your face. I think it's just the voice. Do you want to try and go back out and come back in? Maybe
It's what?
it's actually your voice that's hanging back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. You
Oh,
know.
my voice.
So we hear
Okay.
incomplete sentences. Yeah. So sorry, Susan. Oh yeah. Mm? Maybe we could just get you off the stage and then we
So
can come back in. Or you think you can
um,
continue? You think
yeah,
it'll
let
be
me
all right?
try and
Or
continue.
you can try, yeah. Try it one more
Yeah,
time, then if yeah, that's fine, no problem. Sorry, everybody. Don't worry about it. These are technical difficulties, no problem. We're used to them here in Africa.
and off
Okay,
again.
go on. Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, yeah. The African countries have not been happy. That's on the abortion issue, but Trump has removed in the PEPFAR programs. He has removed anything that has anything to do with that, and that was one of the that is issues. Those
All right. I've removed Susan from the stage, and I'll hope that she'll get back in as quickly as she can because, unfortunately, her sentences are not really completing. Sometimes we have problems with internet accessibility depending on the provider that you're using, and unfortunately, we're still at that stage in this country, which is quite annoying. But anyway, it's no problem. It's not really her fault. She'll be back. But anyway, continuing on as we wait for Susan to come back on stage. Susan, if you can get off stage and maybe come back on, then we will be happy to readmit you to the stage. We'll be happy to readmit you to the stage. So anyway, so basically, what I'll allow Susan to complete her thoughts because I guess she has her own thoughts about this. But generally, um, we are talking about the kinds of traditional values, that were being questioned by Elon Musk and by Donald Trump and by many other leaders all over. Although that we haven't really had a voice, but now we're actually going to have this voice. And like we were talking a lot about before, is issues to do with gender dysphoria, yeah, deconstructing support for gender dysphoria, deconstructing the issue on marriage as a male female relationship thing, you know, and deconstructing equality, diversity, and inclusion. Okay. Deconstructing the whole, which, by the way, I was a victim of when I was working in the UK. DEI, something I absolutely detest. I really detest it because I find it like it doesn't give me the credit, the credibility that I deserve, having earned my education. It seems that either as a black person or as a woman, that you come in as a token or you come in under DEI. And unfortunately, that removes your credibility and diminishes you in front of your colleagues, which is unfortunate. So I just hope that although one of my friends who is African American living in the US, she told me that unfortunately, in her experience, the Trump presidency is just giving license to people to behave badly, to speak openly, and to show their racism openly. I'm really hoping that that's going to stop because that's not going to be helpful for anybody. Yeah, because we all need each other. You can see that farmers have been complaining, and most of them are white farmers in America. They're complaining that there's nobody to pick the fruit, there's nobody to harvest, and their fruit is going to waste. So what's going to happen to their harvest? What's going to happen to their bottom line? It's going to be affected. And that just goes to show how everybody needs each other and how some of these policies actually are not helpful for us. Yeah. And then we had that issue of deconstructing aid. I have been working in the sector of aid for a long time, and so have many of my colleagues. And it's only in the past, can I say maybe 10 to 15 years, where I've really been questioning, where does all this aid money go to? Really, where does it go to? Now we're hearing that some of that aid money has been going to extremist groups. Yeah. And now we want to deconstruct that, because that is serious. If it's actually going to the extremists when we're actually talking about stopping terrorism, anti-terrorism, funding anti-terrorism, and meanwhile you're actually the money is actually going to terrorists. I mean, kind of that is very disingenuous of aid. And unless we actually see the evaluation reports, or if we see like private files, I don't know whether, I think they're going to have to open up some of these files. I think they're talking about sharing some of this secret information with the public, and I think the public in America should definitely request it. Yeah. And then again, there's this what they call a post-national nationalism experiment, where this multiculturalism. Multiculturalism is something that is, to me, it sounds very good. It just means that we are open and tolerant to people from other cultures. But unfortunately, it came at a cost of people having to choose between being nationalistic being proud of their nation, being proud of their nation, and protecting their national goods and services, and protecting their culture, and giving credit to their institutions, the ones that they respect, and then being quiet when they see, being quiet in the face of multiculturalism and not being free to express their views. So I think this is a sort of reverse racism or something, or reverse discrimination, should we say, a reverse discrimination, which affects the nationals of the country. I have been a witness to this as well in the US and in the UK, especially in the UK. And I can say maybe, yeah, it's true. There is a dominant culture that seems to be affected. The dominant culture seems to be affected by illegal migration and people coming in with their own ideologies and trying to supersede the one that is existing there. And then there's the issue of liberalism, modern liberalism, and climate change. And then, of course, like we talked about, the human rights issues and democracy issues. So, all of these are the kinds of things that are being deconstructed right now, and we don't really have the results yet. We can just see a process taking place. We're not at the point yet where we can actually see results. Let's see whether Susan is back so that she can continue. Let me see if I can add her to the stage. I think she's trying to come back onto the stage, and I hope she will. Let me add her to the stage. She's not back yet. Yeah, I think I need to just yeah. Oh, she's back. Oh, welcome, Susan. Hopefully this time you're not going to be hanging.
I've
Yeah.
tried to move closer to the router. I've
Okay.
tried to
Okay.
move.
Yeah, that might help. Yeah, that might help. Let's try that.
Oh, it's really
Sorry
disturbing.
about that. Sorry about that. Do you need a few minutes or a second?
Yes.
No, you're still hanging, unfortunately. It's still hanging. Yeah. I think it's the Wi-Fi connection over there. Might have to switch it on and off.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me.
Or use your mobile network. That might be better.
Can you? Is that
Yeah, I
better?
can hear you now. I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Issues that the
Okay.
Trump administration, on the issue of decision, countries look at their own aid, the aid that they're giving, and they're considering that as well, and they're looking at it and saying, okay, they might also change their policies as well on some of the for many nations, even in the West, to operate. Yeah, and I was listening to some podcasts, and they were saying, for instance, on the issue of gender, the gender dysphoria issue, they've talked about it quite at length. This of ideas, and they're looking at many issues, and one of them is that one of the transgender issue, and saying how it has been understood. So a number of doctors have come out and said, look, we're not handling this the right way. This is actually people are talking about transgender issues. It's not as they've taken it. We are treating the superficial issues instead of looking at the underlying issues. And they were connecting issues, saying that some of the things that they deal with are autism. Many of them are autistic. This is, and he says many of them are autistic. They also have other issues. And autistic people are not able to, they see things in black and white. And because they see things in black and white, typical of, say, a certain behavior perhaps is more typical of males. This is something like that. Then they think that they're also males. And I listened to one lady, actually, she said she struggled with it, and she said that and also that on the autistic spectrum, women who are autistic have similar. So it's easy for them to. She's masculine, that she's male. She actually, it actually cured her. Issue. So things that they suffer from, and he gave there are four groups of people he was looking at. There were the transsexuals, then there are the who have tried to physically change their gender, or their sex. Male, you're born male. If you're born female, you're born female. You cannot change that. That is something you cannot change. Then the transvestites are those who like to dress up as women, and there are two levels of those. This is what this doctor found out. Like to get clothes, and the others, the another group that get aroused by wearing women's clothes. And then there's the autogynophiles. These are those who get excited about having women's body parts. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he was talking about that group, and the day, only less than 2% of his patients went on to hormonal treatment. And he discovered, in fact, his argument is that transgenderism is a proxy. It's not, it's a proxy solution for something else. He also talked about another group of people, and those are children. The children, he called it rapid onset. I can't find it, but it's some rapid onset something, and the children, they want to do it, and he said it's like a fad, it's like a trend, it's like a social trend, and you're saying how young people influence one another. And he was talking about during the World War II, after the World War II, the music is what was that now it went to social media, and people started watching that, and then they started that the social media has had to play in some of these ideas that have come to take our society by storm, which we struggle with. So the group of children of him, this doctor, it's a subculture, and it is wrong to presume that not. That's his view, because he was saying that of his patients, only 2% actually went ahead to, after the counseling, he was having group therapy and things like that with different groups, some who are detransitioning, some they've got into the wrong space. So actually it's quite a serious sort of thing that was introduced and was being pushed. Many countries received money to support transgenderism. There was even something about drag queens. There was a play. in plays and diversity, equity, and inclusion again, which was again causing it supporting what they're calling woke ideologies. And there's a particular his definition of woke is making sacred of historically marginalized race, gender, and sexual identity groups, and treating them with a lot of compassion and kindness, and allowing that to sort of take over the whole narrative and the whole space. And so the DE, according to Eric Kaufman, means equal outcomes for historically marginalized groups, yeah, which translates to discrimination for others. Okay, and then inclusivity is about speech. It really is checking the way we speak and refer to things and to people. So you can't just and in fact, the universities
Yeah.
or
Susan, unfortunately, you're still hanging, and it's difficult to get you to have. It's difficult to follow because you're breaking up. Yeah, so it's unfortunate, that unless you can sort this out, maybe you can get off stage and try and sort it out. Unless you can sort it out, it's going to be difficult to participate. Yeah, it's going to be difficult because you keep you when you speak, we don't hear some of the words, they disappear, so we only hear some part of your sentences. Can you hear me clearly? Can you hear me clearly? See, now you're hanged at this
yeah,
point. Yeah.
is it still hanging?
Yeah, totally. Not just the picture, but your sentences are totally hanging, and it's making it impossible to communicate. Yeah, maybe you can try, I don't know. Yeah,
Let me
so
come on.
guys, yeah, I don't know, maybe you can try. I'll have to remove you from stage for right now, and then maybe you can try come back a little bit later,
Yeah.
maybe, if you can. Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, guys, we are back. Susan said a lot of very interesting things in there. We had this discussion with Susan a little bit earlier, and it was so interesting about what she was trying to explain there. If I can just try and say it in her own words, is that without her words, is that there was a doctor who has been working in the area of gender dysphoria for some time, and he totally refused to get into this debate. Okay. And then apparently that particular doctor discovered that, in fact, I think through the writings of other doctors, or maybe through other doctors who are also in the same space, they discovered that actually the problem with people who have gender dysphoria is that they could be on the spectrum, of autism, the autism spectrum. And I think I'll leave it to Susan to explain to you, what that was all about. But I think this is just these are the changes, these are the dismantling of deconstruction that are going to happen. Things are being deconstructed. So, for example, let's bring it closer to home. There's a lot of people who believe that Africa and Africans don't have much to contribute in the world. I've always said that the world would be a much richer place, and maybe our lifespan would have been enhanced if Africans were allowed to take their place on the world stage and to contribute to knowledge and to contribute to new inventions and medical interventions and things like that. We have been denied as Africans the opportunity for so many years, I think for decades. Yeah, we have been denied the opportunity to come on the stage, and I mean to come and to be in the center. We are always on the periphery. People of our skin color are always on the periphery, and we are denied. There's one person I was listening to today, And he's actually a British guy who was talking about the fact that in all his years living in Kenya and in Eastern Africa, and he has traveled to so many African countries, he has never once experienced any bad treatment, any maltreatment, even if he is very aware that his forefathers were some of, had participated in in very bad, in a very, what do you say, very bad culture, what they had done to the people of Africa, like enslavement, colonization, that they were participants, willing participants in the oppression of Africans. But he himself has never experienced that kind of oppression anywhere he has gone in Africa. And he said that what was also so difficult for him to accept is the fact that in the UK and in Europe and in Americas, he has experienced and he has seen for himself how Africans have such a hard time, first of all, trying to get their visas to go to Europe and to America, how the passports are limited. Yeah, how the passports are limited, how visas are limited, how it's so difficult to get a visa, expensive. When Africans who are well trained go and look for jobs in Europe and America, usually they're denied. And so most Africans are ending up working in sectors where they are underemployed and their skills underutilized. So he says many professional Africans end up working as carers and as security people. I have said this before on this show, guys, that we Africans have been denied an opportunity to contribute in the Americas and also in Europe. We have been denied that opportunity. So the only place that we have now really is Africa. So the only thing we can do, the way I can see it, is to deconstruct the ideas that, the indoctrination that we are less people, less than, that our continent doesn't have opportunities. Why is it that they want to indoctrinate us and make us think that we don't have opportunities, that there's nothing to be gotten from remaining on the continent and building ourselves and benefiting from the resources of the continent? Yet we know that this continent actually has 60% arable land. And countries such as China are also farming in Africa. The Middle East is farming in the Sudan. One of the main reasons, why the UAE is interested in the Sudan is because of the water resources. You never think about the Sudan having adequate water resources for farming, but they have vast agricultural lands that are under people, from the Middle East. The Middle East has taken tracts and tracts of land in the Sudan. Apart from the oil, we hear a lot about the oil, but we don't actually hear about the land. Yeah, we have governments that are successful in Africa. For example, we have Lesotho, where I have talked about, the securities exchange being one of the healthiest in the continent and on the planet. Yeah, so there are a lot of people whose pension funds are actually in Lesotho. Yeah, so Africa has a lot of potential, a huge amount of potential, which is untapped, including the human resources. And this is what we need to deconstruct and dismantle. As the West, as America is dismantling and deconstructing, the negatives in their society, we as Africans also need to be doing the same thing. Yeah? We should also be dismantling and deconstructing what we're hearing. Right now, I actually saw that one of our politicians, I think it's one of our politicians, is encouraging young people to leave and go and get jobs abroad. They had found, I think, 2,000 jobs or something in the Middle East for Africans, for Kenyans. And we need to deconstruct that whole idea of Africans having to go abroad to go and earn foreign exchange to maintain the lifestyles of the leaders of our countries, because actually that is not what your purpose is in this life. The purpose of our life is not to enhance the lives of other people by leaving our families without us, without our energies in our countries. Actually, the idea of nationalism is something that is being, reconstructed. We need to reconstruct nationalism. For example, in some countries, like which country was that I was saying? Burkina Faso, I think. They just introduced a law where foreigners cannot own land. They can't. The land belongs to the government of Burkina Faso. I believe in Tanzania it was like that for a very long time, if it's not still that way now. What I know about in Tanzania, it was that even in Kenyans could not own land in Tanzania without another Tanzanian as well having co-ownership on that piece of property or some sort of vested interest in it formally. But we in Kenya happily give away land, which is a limited resource, and we are happy to have tracts and tracts of that land, yeah, go under things like conservation. And we have this analyst, we have this political analyst. Actually, he's not really a political analyst so much as an environmental consultant. His name is Mordecai Oguda. I think it's Dr. Mordecai Ogada. And he talks a lot about the land which is under the so-called conservation. Tracts and tracts, hundreds of thousands of acres of land, but it's under foreigners. And the fact that a lot of that land is cordoned off and a lot of things happen in there, including, things to do with loss of life of Kenyans who are trying to graze their livestock in that land. So in our countries, we need to deconstruct also all of the things that we consider to be normal. We have to look at them and see, should these continue to be normal or not? What are your views on this, guys? Come on the StreamYard. Let's have a chat. I can see Susan is back. Let's try her again. Susan, please come back to the stage. I hope that you're okay now. It's so sad not to
Yeah,
have you on the program. Oh, that
I've
sounds like
tried.
a good. That sounds very good right there.
Okay, I've tried a different something else.
Method. Okay, good,
Yeah,
good, good,
yeah.
fabulous, good. Yeah, this one is working. This one is working, Susan. You might want to repeat what you said about the doctor. We hardly heard anything.
Okay.
Honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just saying that one of the big things that the Trump administration has is deconstructing, and which is receiving a lot of a lot of the African countries are supporting that, is this whole business of LGBTQ and the gender issue, um, and DEI, because particularly the gender issue and the LGBTQ, because we don't feel comfortable with it as Africans don't feel comfortable with that type of conversation, generally speaking. So what was happening with the Democrats? They were insisting, they were tying that to aid. And so some countries wrote to Congress and complained and said, look, you know, this, we're not comfortable with this. And they even said, look, China gives us aid, but they never insist that we follow their ways. But you are insisting we follow the ways. So they were saying again, now the Republicans were saying that was impacting their foreign policy. They were getting a bad, it was causing a lot of tensions between them and a nation, which they would hope to trade with, because actually the Republicans are looking at um, aid, from aid to trade. They're actually looking for countries to trade with at the end of the day. For them, giving aid, the end game is to trade, and it's not that they want to give us aid forever. So, like we said in earlier conversations, this is what's happening right now is an opportunity. It has exposed the weakness in foreign aid. It's exposed the dependence on the US as being the largest supporter, the largest, the continent that gives the most aid, even though it's below what they're supposed to give. They give 0.24%. They're supposed to be giving at least 0.7%, but they give 0.24%, and they're still the largest. They're the ones who give the most aid. So that has exposed that, and really it's an opportunity, as we've said in earlier shows, for the countries that have been receiving this aid to rethink their strategies on how they're going to refinance these things. So yeah, when I was talking about the issue of gender dysphoria, I was talking about some of the things that they are learning in the West, and the things that have made them, like for instance in England, them take a different view on that whole issue of transgender. And one of them is that one of the speakers at this forum, he's a doctor, he's a psychiatrist, and he's been treating people who have gender dysphoria. And he said that there are four types, there are four categories who come to see him. and he has he has been treating them. He was talking about the transsexuals and transvestites, autogynophiles, and then there's a fourth category which was calling the rapid onset gender dysphoric. So the last one, rapid onset gender dysphoric, are children, are the young people, and they, according to him, it is a trend, very much like it's a subculture, it's a trend that the young people have picked up. It is not something that needs to be medicalized. It's a wrong presumption that it's a medical condition. So he was saying that the response by the medical, by the doctors has been incorrect, and that uh, of his patients, those who come and say they want to transition, or they are suffering from gender dysphoria, less than 2% of them actually go on to hormone treatment. And so he was saying that what they have discovered is that uh, those patients who come with that are actually on the autistic spectrum. Many of them are on the autistic spectrum. And in fact, in that particular conference, there was a lady who has experienced that. And she said that she discovered that she was autistic at age 25. So when she discovered she was autistic at age 25, that's when she understood what she was experiencing, because she said, I felt like a man. But what she learned in learning about autism was that the profile of a female autistic person and that of a male are very similar. So what she was saying, because she's autistic, apparently autistic people see things in black and white, so they're not able to see that category in between, that you don't have to be atypically something to belong to that category. So she sees herself as not being atypically female. Her responses to things are not what female feel. So what these doctors talked about, he said that the problem with the medicine today is, at least in the West, is they're treating, they're not treating the real issues, the root causes for that feeling of gender dysphoria. They are treating the gender dysphoria itself without trying to understand what is causes that. And so, so if it is things like ADHD, autism, and then the other factors, actually, there's a nurse also who talked about it and said and most of them have underlying issues. And she said that only 2.5% of those who went to the clinic, Tavistock now, this is in England, for for treatment, had no underlying issues. 70% had more than 5 mental health conditions, which include self-harm, trauma, they've suffered bullying, and victims of abuse. 10% had a parent on the sex offenders register. 25% are children who had spent their time in care. And at least 50% had ADHD or suffered from autism. The other doctor said that actually all his patients, all of them had autism. So if they really wanted to treat the problem, they would have addressed the autism, they would have addressed the ADHD, they would have addressed the issues that are making the child do self-harm, or help them to heal from the bullying, from the trauma, and stuff like that. But instead, they just go straight to medicalizing them and stuff like that. And these are some of the things that there's pushback. And I think in the US, they've said they will not allow it until the person is 19 years old, where they can make a decision. So these are some of the things that have really turned the world upside down. And in fact, some of the problem with wokeism, and I gave a definition of it given by Eric Kaufman. He called it making sacred of historically marginalized race, gender, and sexual identity groups. And then DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. He said the problem is the euphemism. And DE stands for equal outcomes for historically marginalized groups. And then I is for inclusion, which is what is being used to curb speech, freedom of speech. So you could not speak really about what you felt about, say, DEI and so on. And I listened to a lot of speakers who were saying, actually, the DEI doesn't work. In fact, it makes it worse for the people who have been benefited from these programs. It makes it worse for them. So the same thing he was talking about, um, things like some of the actions on equality as well. They've made it worse because, for instance, on equity, when they've used equity principles, it has made it worse for the people who are benefiting from it, because they will still their station is not improved at all. They will still be discriminated against because they'll be seen to have been favored somehow by the system, so as to bring them up to the to the level that they are supposed to be. So even in terms of scoring, for instance, we're talking about the entrance points for universities. They would lower the grade, say for African Americans, by 200, 300 points. Meanwhile, the other groups are getting like the Asians and the whites are getting the grades without addressing the reasons. And this is what is called Sowell was saying. You need to address the reasons as to why a certain group is scoring better than the other group, instead of just trying to make artificial adjustments, which end up causing more discrimination. In fact, they said it's worse. The other thing about this system is how women's rights have been cancelled literally by DEI, and this gender, this the gender issue and the sexual identity groups. Men are coming into women's spaces, and they're taking the women's awards. They're winning our medals in sports and stuff like that. And that is not what women fought for. That is not what women fought for. So men are saying they can come to decide that they're women, and they're just definitely men are different from women. Actually, if I'm not wrong, there are so many differences, even physically, between men and women. We are nowhere near each other, even in terms of testosterone levels. Or even if they reduce their testosterone, there's still a big gap between men and women. There's no overlap between that. So men and women are very, very, very different. We're created that way by God. Even in sports, our barriers for, let's say, hurdling are lower for women than men, because men can jump higher. Volleyball, the net is higher than for women. So if a man is playing volleyball, say, with women, I mean, he can jump so high. The women cannot jump as high as he can. He can hit harder and everything like that. So this whole culture has really caused a big mess in the world, and it's time to dismantle it. My fear is, and why I've spoken about this in great length, is that the African countries should not inherit this 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 thinking, because it's something that is destroying the West, and we should not allow it to come here. We should not allow this to come into our country at all. We should fight back. We should push back, because women have fought for their rights since 1791. There was a French lady who started, that she even wrote a declaration on women's rights. Since the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, where they recognize that all were equal, and that the Universal Declaration applies to everybody, male or female. Since all the different conventions for women of the the CEDAW, Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, the one of Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, the Maputo Protocol for Africans. All these things, women have fought their battles, and now we have been literally made irrelevant and literally second-class citizens by some of these extreme things that are being brought about by being pushed, agendas being pushed by the Democrats. So I think that the African world is really happy about some of those particular things. The problem is not that it's a bad idea to be inclusive or to do, to care about others who are different, or to care about others. It's just that how far off the charts we've gone. Any idea taken to the extreme becomes harmful. And now we've created a monster that is taken over spaces. And with that reversal, that pushback needs to take place. And I suspect we're going to see many nations, even in the West, pushing back. And what we must not do in Africa is allow any of those ideas to take root. We need to stand up and say no. And in fact, just the way they were saying, the African governments were saying, okay, China doesn't ask us they don't tie their aid in such a way that we have to change who we are. Um, that is something that should worry America, because it means that perhaps African countries will feel better looking for aid from China than looking for aid from America. And America is looking for partners to trade with, and that's why they give aid. They're trying to move from aid to trade. So that transition is really, really important to them. So when we look at literally some of these projects like the DEI policies, they've really impacted universities, even the purpose, the core values of universities. That has undermined their core purpose of pursuit of knowledge and truth seeking, because they cannot speak the truth. Your language is curtailed. You cannot speak freely about an issue, because you might injure or harm somebody else. And so this free speech issue, Trump talked about it. The free speech, it's come back. People should be allowed to speak freely on issues, and you know so that there can be advancement. The universities have really suffered about that. Even the quota system, where there's been some limitation, or because there has to be a quota of this group and this group and this group and this group, it has affected even the outcomes of that particular university. It has not really encouraged people to work as hard as each other. So it makes, does is making some groups work much, much harder, because there's certain quotas that have to go to others. And what is important and is that we should all realize that we can all attain those grades. There's nothing actually to hold any race from attaining the grades that they need, and that is the issue, and that's the point that needs to be addressed, rather than trying to give superficial support that end up damaging your opportunities. You're seen as not being as good as anybody else in your field because of your skin color, and which is so unfortunate when you think about those who have actually, maybe they scored the highest grade, and because they were black, and everybody will look at them and say, well, they benefited from DEI. And so that's something that we don't want to have. Even as Africans, we want to stand on the world stage and speak with our peers with authority, because we have earned the accolades that we have, and we have not been favored in any way to get those accolades. There are very strong views actually on some of these issues from scholars, black, white, and there's just general agreement that this whole system, this whole woke system, has actually caused more damage to our society, and it's time that we actually do this deconstructed. Africans, please let us not have that. It has caused a lot of mess in the West. They are going on and on and on. In fact, one of the speakers was talking about this LGBTQI, now the Z. They have said LGBTQ Z, and Z means they've brought in another another category of people, I'm trying to find where I've written that down, but the Z stands for another category of people, which is now just taking things completely out of this world and completely unacceptable stages. I'll find it. I'll just mention it later when I find it. When we talk about the foreign aid to our country and what's been happening, for instance, the gaps that have been caused by the USAID issue. For instance, Kenya is looking to fill a gap of 30.9 billion, and Uganda is looking for 300 billion Ugandan shillings. So there are big gaps in our economy, not in our economy, in our healthcare systems that for this that need to be addressed. I don't know. They had said that the PEPFAR was working, so I'm not sure whether the money has not been released or whether it's still frozen, or this is in addition to what is already being given. Because in Kenya, they're saying the areas that are still going to be affected, apart from the HIV, is TB and also malaria. And other areas, they're talking about blood transfusion and immunization and vaccination as well. Yeah. So, oh, we can't hear you, Queen Mo.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I'm saying, oh, so that's what you wanted to say. That's wonderful. Very interesting. Yep, dismantling, deconstruction. Like I was saying before, it's a process. And, they're going to start anywhere. There's not any specific thing they're going to be looking at and say, I mean, there's no specific framework that they're going to say we're going to deconstruct A, B, C, D. They're just going to come up. I believe, these, whatever it is that's going to be deconstructed, there's so much to deconstruct and to reconstruct. We don't even know where to start. It's almost like Gaza. Life has been a Gaza, for the past, I don't know how many years. Our lives have been just turned upside down. And I'm hoping that, we as people who have been victims of colonization and those who have been enslaved, I think there's a lot of time. This is a time for self-reflection, to think about what we want to keep and what we want to deconstruct, what we want to be dismantled and deconstructed, you know. And at the moment, like I was saying earlier, I have worked most of my life in aid, at least in the field of aid. It was a whole sector, okay, of aid. And my father before me also worked a lot with government, and also benefiting, or should I say, not say benefiting, but implementing aid projects in the country. But as an evaluator, having had the opportunity to review what are the benefits of aid, really the problem with aid is that it's so fragmented. The benefits are so fragmented, and the benefits are time bound within the period of projects. And so a lot of the times those benefits do not actually, they don't get measured over long term, and most of those results actually don't get felt or even noted. And that becomes really difficult because, you see, unfortunately, if the projects are not owned by the country itself, if the monies are not owned by the country, by the government, there's no way that they can tell whether or not they're making a difference in the lives of people over a long period of time, like a whole generation, 30 years, 70 years. They don't have that. And one of the biggest problems that we have right now is access to data. Most of the studies that are done by international organizations, they are under no obligation to share data with us. Although they use the citizens like ourselves, researchers, to go and collect data, yeah, because they fund it, they keep it. And in the end, the government has to buy the data back. And this is one of the problems we're having actually with our healthcare system, that they don't even know how many people are actually the HIV sufferers. They don't have all the information on the people who need the HIV drugs, antiretrovirals. They don't know how many people are on them. They don't know how many people are infected. They probably do, but they don't really have the database, the most recent database. They don't have it. Yeah. And this is a problem that we have in our country, that we don't also fund research. And so that has to be reconstructed. We need to deconstruct that. We need to not normalize not collecting data, because once you have the information is power. And information is not just opening your mouth and talking in front of a microphone or standing in front of a pulpit in a church. Information is where you collect information, data. It helps to inform decision making. But unfortunately, a lot of people are just used to things like polls, election polls. At the moment, right now, we've been experiencing this kind of interference in, for example, our elections, our election systems, and in our governance systems, and that needs to be deconstructed. That was a deconstruction that needs to be reconstructed. Yeah. At the moment, we are facing a lot of threats. We're living in countries that are making with governments that are making very dangerous decisions, very high risk decisions on behalf of the citizens. At the moment, Kenya was hosting who? Kenya was hosting actually a rebel group from the Sudan at the Kenya International Conference Center today. Yeah, and they were busy singing and chanting. We were hosting them. We Kenyans were hosting those people. I mean, can you imagine, what our neighbors are thinking about us right now? That's very, very risky. It's high risk. And I wonder to myself, a lot of Kenyans are very worried. In fact, when I look at the comment sections, whenever people are talking about that issue, they're like, are you guys scared? Are you worried? I'm actually fearful. I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. These guys are playing with fire. Yeah. I don't think there's maybe one comment where someone was saying, yeah, we have to interfere. Those people don't know what they're doing. But the majority of people were like, no, we are a peaceful nation. We are, the oasis in the region where people come to have a drink of water when things get too hot. Yeah, in their countries. Kenya is actually a safe haven. It has been for many, many years. We are the peacemaker. So for us to be hosting the rebel group of South Sudan, and we have been admonished by the government of Sudan for doing that. I just wonder where this is going to take us and why we have decided to meddle in the affairs of our neighbors. And we need to look at that and say, are we going to continue? Is this going to be dismantled? Or are we going to just continue constructing it? Because this is a building that's being constructed. And we need to decide whether we want to deconstruct it or not. Yeah, it's a process. We are experiencing this process, and it's a very bad one right now. As we can see, there's so many taxes that have been introduced through the back door. And we need to think about, are we going to deconstruct those? That's something that's a deconstruction of our tax regime, because that's not how Kenyans have been used to paying taxes. You pay taxes for housing that you're not going to actually live in, and then when you get it, you have to pay a mortgage or you have to pay rent, and you've already paid for it. Lots of confusion. So, but that's in the situation when it comes to Kenya. But in terms of deconstructing even our minds, in terms of whether we think that our continent is inferior to other continents, the opportunities that are available even for education on our continent are inferior to those educational opportunities in other countries, in other continents. Do you know we have a lot of very good universities in Africa? I don't think many of you are aware. I've visited many, many universities and I've worked with many of them. Institutions of higher learning. Why do we feel that we have to actually send our children still to Europe, to Americas? We don't have to do that anymore. You can send your child over to another country in Africa, Uganda, Nigeria, South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia. Traveling to Morocco, I found that there's a lot of people from Francophone Africa who go to study in Morocco. And also Morocco is a medical tourism base. You see the way for francophone speaking people, from mostly from Western Africa, just the same way South Africa has been and continues to be like a medical tourism place for many English speaking people within SADC region, especially Nairobi as well for this region. So we need to deconstruct those colonialist mindsets in our minds, and also follow suit with America. Yeah. So I think I'm just going to wind up the show because this show has been a little problematic, but we also want to close off quickly. And yeah, it has been a difficult show, this one. Yeah, guys, we just admit life is not a straight line. These are the kinds of things we need to deconstruct. I think it's because we talked about dismantling and deconstruction. That's the reason why it's been difficult. It has
Oh my
decided to
gosh.
deconstruct us here.
Yeah. My
Okay, so
apologies.
final
My
words. Final.
apologies for that.
No problem. It's no
Yeah.
problem. It's not your fault, is it? Yeah.
But first of all, my apologies for all that interference. Definitely. Oh, the Z. I found out what I remembered what it is. The Z stands for bestiality. So they're encouraging things which are completely, off the charts for us. And like Queen Mo says, our independence, this is our opportunity really to go our own path and not really allow other people's behavior, culture, what's happening in other nations to determine what we're doing. The USAID issue, there are a lot of allegations. Just listening even to the question time and the discussion in Congress about what they were doing, the excesses, where the money was going. What they did say is that there were gems in the rubble. There are some gems like the PEPFAR program in the rubble. So those ones, the US, they want to support, but what they don't want is all those things that are contrary to their culture. And likewise, for us as Africans, we should not support anything that's contrary to our culture, or any other part of the world, anything that is contrary to your culture. For instance, to learn that funds were going to influence the media. I mean, you don't expect them to be interfering. I mean, well, that's what was happening. The funds that coming from Congress were being used to interfere with the media, to influence the media and to control the media. And that's really not what they should have been doing. And those excesses. So we need to watch out. Aid, when aid is coming, that we are able as a nation to stand firm and to stand tall, and not to allow ourselves to be manipulated in any way. The woke thing, we shouldn't allow it even to take any root in this country. It has been described as a virus more dangerous than anything history has, than anything in history, hands down. So it's a virus more dangerous than anything in history, hands down. And that's something we should completely reject. We see how it has messed up with the Western culture. They don't even know what they don't even know. And we are being forced to change our mindsets about things we know are not correct, are not correct at all. And women are being cancelled as a result of that. And that's something we cannot accept. Women constitute 50% of humanity, and they deserve, they should not be cancelled. We are visible, we are there, and we stand tall. We are part of our nations. We are building our nations alongside our men, and we should never, ever be cancelled. Thank you.
I hope you can hear me. You can. Okay, great. Yeah. Okay, guys. So thank you so much. This has been a very dismantling and deconstructing conversation. Hoping that you're learning. We're all learning together. It's all new to us. We can't believe this is actually happening. To be honest, this is history in the making. Yeah, we're part of history, and we should be happy and feel happy that things are happening. There are some people who are not going to be happy at all. Yeah, there will be, and that's just going to be it. And I think maybe it's time for reflection, for everybody to self-reflect and decide how we want our our world to look like and to run. Like those studies, we want to hear the other side of it. We want to understand better. We don't want information, to not be available to us. We don't want people to withhold the truth from us. We want to understand. It's better to make decisions based on knowledge than on ignorance. So, for example, if there's this issue of DEI, this issue of gender dysphoria, these issues of aid and everything, every decision should be made with full understanding and full weighting of all the potential consequences and the pros and the cons. Yeah. And that was what has actually been missing. There's some people out there who have different agendas, and the main agenda has been just to profit off of anything that they can profit off. Yeah. And that's the problem, that the lack of morality and ethics is really what we have been facing. And we hope that it's actually going to change the direction over the next 4 years, and give us a space to also, as Africans, become part of the reconstruction, of the dismantling of our societies. So, Susan, thank you so much for your time, and everybody else on the comments. Thank you so much for bearing with us, those of you who did. I know it's a bit late, and today we didn't have very much participation in the live show, but we understand that is because it was difficult. But join us on Friday, where we're going to be talking about relationships. Okay, for those of you who I can see an eye over there. For those of you who have been watching, really appreciate you. Please give us a thumbs up, give us a comment. And yeah, let's see you on Friday. Thank you so much, Susan. And good night, everybody. On behalf of
Good
African
night.
Kumud, good night. Bye bye. And good day. Bye bye.